Starseeds and lightworkers, something in you has been carrying a weight that no one around you seems to fully understand. Not because you are broken, and not because you are lost, but because what you are moving through was never meant to be understood by those who haven't felt it. I am Tyron, a representative of the High Council of Sirius, and I want you to know, the pain you have been holding is not a sign that you failed. It is a sign that something inside you is being reshaped at a depth that most will never reach. By the end of this message, you will understand why what felt like collapse was never collapse at all, and what has quietly been shifting in your path because of every hard moment you chose to keep moving through. The heaviness you have been carrying is not emotional debris, and it is the feeling of an old version of yourself releasing its hold. Like the ocean pulling back before a wave. The retreat is not the end. It is the preparation. What broke apart in your last cycle was not meant to survive into where you are going. The Sirian waters do not carry what can no longer serve the soul moving forward. Every starseed who holds this kind of light goes through a restructuring that feels, from the inside, like loss. The stillness after something ends. The fog where certainty used to live. But beneath that fog, something ancient and steady has been working. Not repairing what was, building what comes next. You did not arrive here by mistake. Something inside you recognized this signal before your mind could explain it. And the fact that you are still here, still listening, and still searching for the truth beneath the weight, that tells everything about who you are. Stay with me. What follows may finally give language to what your soul has already known. And I am grateful you are here with me now. That ache you've been carrying, the one that doesn't have a clean name, isn't a wound waiting to be healed the way people talk about healing, as if you can wrap it in a bow and place it on a shelf. It's not a simple bruise that fades when enough time passes. It's a signal, a flare rising from the deepest part of you, sent long ago and timed perfectly to reach your awareness at exactly this point. Not yesterday, when you would have tried to think your way out of it. Not in some distant future, when you finally have everything arranged and predictable. Now, and because the kind of awakening you're moving through doesn't arrive politely. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't tap you gently on the shoulder like an idea. It comes the way water reshapes stone. Not through force, but through persistence. Through touch repeated 1,000 times. Through presence. Through a quiet and relentless knowing that something must change, even if you can't yet explain what that something is. Water doesn't argue with rock. It doesn't negotiate. It simply returns again and again until what once seemed immovable begins to soften at the edges. And that's what is happening in you, the edges of an old identity wearing away. Not because you are weak, but because you are becoming true. There's a reason you've been unable to name it. Language was made for the surface. This ache comes from depth. And depth speaks in sensation, in pressure, in tides, in dream symbols and sudden tears, and the feeling of being pulled towards something you can't see, but somehow trust. Even scripture hints at this kind of movement. Deep calls to deep. Something in you is calling, and something deeper in you is answering, and you're standing in the middle of that echo, wondering why it feels both unsettling and strangely familiar. There's a reason you've always felt like you were living between two worlds. One foot in what's visible, tangible, expected. Appointments, bills, social scripts, small talk, the familiar rhythm of days that repeat, and another foot somewhere else entirely. Somewhere vast and still and ancient. A place your mind can't map, but your soul recognizes like home. A place that feels like moonlight on water. It's like standing at the edge of an ocean at night, hearing a language made of waves. That feeling wasn't a glitch in your development. It wasn't you being too much or too sensitive or too dreamy. It was the most accurate thing about you. You weren't failing to fit in. You were remembering, in the only way this world would allow, that you were never entirely from here. That's why certain places have always felt charged for you. Coastlines, rivers, storms, rain on windows, the hush that falls right before dawn. You've walked through ordinary spaces and felt like you were watching life through a thin veil, like you could sense something sacred behind the ordinary. And maybe you tried to shut that down at times. Maybe you trained yourself to be practical, to be efficient, to be normal, because being between worlds can make you feel lonely, even in a crowded room. But your longing never left, did it? That subtle pull, that persistent sense that you came here with something unspoken inside you, something you couldn't abandon even when you tried. Some healing doesn't come through words, it comes through water. Not because water is magical in a fantasy way, but because water is the original witness. Water remembers. Water holds vibration. Water is present in your tears, in your blood, in the salt of your skin. It is the living mirror inside you. And if something stirred within you just now, a soft yes, a quiet recognition, a feeling like your chest opened, or your throat tightened, or your breath deepened, you may be ready to receive the Sirian water codes. And this powerful guide carries sacred techniques channeled from the waters of Sirius, clearing baths, breathing practices, sound activations, and protection rituals designed specifically for starseeds who have always felt called by the ocean. The link is in the first pinned comment, but only for a limited time. And if you feel even a small pull toward it, notice that. You don't need to convince yourself. The body knows. The soul knows. The same way the tide knows when to return. The pain that moved through your last cycle, the collapse, the confusion, the sense that something you'd built or believed in simply stopped holding, that wasn't punishment. It wasn't evidence that you were doing something wrong. It wasn't proof that you were abandoned, overlooked, or somehow cursed. It was not the universe turning its back on you. What broke down was a container. And containers break when what's growing inside them has become too large, too luminous, too alive to remain contained. Think about it. A seed doesn't stay comfortable inside the shell forever. At a certain point, the shell becomes too small for the life inside it. And what feels like breaking is actually birth. What feels like loss is often the moment the old structure can no longer pretend it's meant to hold you. You weren't losing your way. You were outgrowing a path that was never your final destination. That's why it felt disorienting. Because part of you still wanted stability, still wanted to stay loyal to what you'd known, still wanted to make sense of everything with logic. But another part of you knew, if you stayed, you would shrink. If you stayed, you would suffocate. If you stayed, you would become a version of yourself that survives but doesn't live. So the container cracked. And even if you didn't choose it consciously, your soul chose it. It chose truth over comfort. It chose expansion over approval. It chose the wild, living current over the still pond of what's familiar. The waters within you have always known this, even when your mind was searching frantically for explanations, replaying conversations, revisiting decisions, trying to pinpoint where things went wrong. Something deeper was already moving, adjusting, releasing, clearing the sediment that had settled over years of absorbing what wasn't yours, because that is what sensitive souls do. They absorb, they carry, they hold the emotional and energetic residue of people, places, and timelines that the world doesn't know what to do with. And you walked into rooms and felt the mood before anyone spoke. You listened to someone's story and carried their pain in your body for days. You tried to be strong for others and ended up forgetting what your own strength needed. You became the shoreline, receiving everything. And for a long time, that felt like your burden. Like you were too open, too impacted, too affected by things others could shrug off. But it was also your training. Every layer of weight you carried taught you something about depth, about endurance, about the kind of strength that doesn't announce itself. It simply remains. The kind of strength that keeps loving even when love isn't returned cleanly. The kind of strength that keeps hoping even when hope feels irrational. The kind of strength that learns to breathe at the bottom of the sea. And it's not that you were meant to carry everyone forever. It's that your soul was learning discernment, learning boundaries that don't harden you, learning compassion that doesn't drain you, learning how to be permeable to truth and protected from distortion at the same time. That's advanced work. That's sacred work. That's the work of someone who came here not to blend in, but to stabilize a frequency. That ache you feel isn't emptiness. It's overflow. It's the pressure of carrying something immense in a space that was never quite designed to hold it. It's like trying to pour an ocean through a narrow riverbed. The water doesn't disappear. It pushes outward, seeking more room, seeking a wider channel. And that pressure, that beautiful, unbearable pressure, is exactly what pearls are made of. In darkness, at depth, and under the full weight of the ocean above. The irritant becomes the catalyst. Layer by layer, something luminous forms around what once hurt. Not because the pain was good, but because your spirit is alchemical. Because your soul doesn't waste experience. What you are becoming could only be shaped by exactly what you've been through. Nothing was wasted. Not the confusion that made you question yourself. Not the grief that cracked you open in private. Not the long stretches of silence where you wondered if you'd ever understand why you came here. Why you felt so different. Why you seemed to feel everything so intensely. Even those nights when you stared at the ceiling and tried to bargain with the universe, those were not meaningless. They were prayers, even if you didn't call them that. They were the language of a soul reaching for its own remembering. Things have felt unclear lately, like you're trying to see through deep water. Like you open your eyes and the world is there, but your sense of direction isn't. Like you know something is changing, but you can't point to a single, obvious external reason. That fog isn't a sign that something is wrong with you. It's what happens when old patterns begin to dissolve before new ones have fully formed. The water has to get murky before it clears. Anyone who's watched the seabed shift knows this. When currents move, the silt rises. Visibility drops. It looks worse before it looks better. But that stirring is what allows what was buried to be released. You're not lost. You're in transition. And that takes a kind of courage that most people will never see in you. Because it happens quietly, internally, in the spaces between everything visible. It happens when you choose not to react the way you used to. When you pause instead of performing. When you let an old attachment loosen without forcing a new one to replace it. When you allow yourself to not know, even though not knowing feels like standing in the ocean at night with no shoreline in sight. You are not behind. You are in the most sacred part of the process, the dissolving, the unwinding, the holy unmaking that always comes before a truer form can take shape. There's something encoded inside you that goes far deeper than anything you were taught in this life. A blueprint written not in language, but in frequency. Not in memory, but in resonance. Oh, it isn't stored only in the mind. It lives in your nervous system, in the way your body responds to certain sounds, in the way your breath changes when you stand near moving water. You feel it when you're near the ocean, not just because it's beautiful, but because something in that vastness speaks to your origin. You feel it in the silence after rain, when the world is rinsed clean and the air tastes new. You feel it in those moments when a piece of music, or a particular quality of light, or the sensation of cold water against your skin produces something that isn't quite emotion, it's recognition. Like an internal door opening to a room you forgot existed. Like remembering a face you've never seen in this lifetime. Your cells know something your conscious mind is still learning to articulate. Oh, and that knowing is not poetic imagination. It is your star lineage communicating through the only language the body understands without translation. Vibration. Even the ancient texts carry echoes of this. Spirit moving over the waters. The idea that life begins in waters, that creation itself emerges from the deep. There is a reason your sensitivity has always been tied to water. Water is the first teacher. It shows you how to yield without giving up, how to be soft without being powerless, how to adapt without losing essence. And if you've always felt called by the ocean, it may not be nostalgia, it may be remembrance. This is where panic often sets in, because nothing visible seems to be moving. You look around, and the external world doesn't reflect the internal shift. And that mismatch can make you doubt yourself. It can make you feel like you're floating, like you should be doing more, like you're failing because there is no immediate proof. But the stillness is not stalling, it's anchoring. Like a river that pauses in a wide, calm pool before it finds its next passage through the mountains. That pool isn't a mistake. It's where sediment settles. It's where clarity returns. It's where the river gathers itself and becomes deep enough to carry what comes next. Your soul is integrating what it has already received before it can hold what comes next. Integration is sacred. Integration is what makes the awakening sustainable. Without integration, revelation becomes overwhelm. Without integration, insight becomes a storm that never reaches shore. The Sirian wisdom carried through water teaches this above all else. The river does not rush the pool. It rests there, it deepens, it becomes still enough to reflect the sky. And then, when the time is right, it moves. Not because it was forced, but because the way opened. That's how it will happen for you. Not as a dramatic push, but as a natural flow. One day you'll realize you've been guided all along, even in the moments that felt empty. You may not see it yet, but people around you are already responding to the shift within you. Something in how you speak has changed, not necessarily louder, not necessarily more confident in the traditional sense, but more precise, more grounded, less eager to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding you. Something in how you enter a room, something in the quality of your attention, the way you listen, the way you pause before you respond, and the way you no longer fill silence just to make others comfortable. Silence used to feel like danger. Now it feels like truth. That's not coincidence. When one current changes direction, everything downstream is affected. Your energy is a current. Your presence is a climate. You don't need to announce your transformation. You are already transmitting it. People can feel when you've stopped chasing. They can feel when you've stopped abandoning yourself. They can feel when you've begun to live from the inside out. And those who carry frequencies that can meet yours will find you, not because you sought them out, but because water always finds its level. The connections that are meant for you won't require you to contort. They won't require you to perform a version of yourself that's easier to digest. They will feel like exhale. I like being seen without being scanned. Like being met in the same depth you've always offered others. This is also the phase that asks you to release what was never truly yours. Beliefs about who you should be. Expectations layered onto you by a world that couldn't recognize what you carried. The old agreements you made in order to belong. To be smaller, quieter, more agreeable, more predictable. Emotional weight that settled into your field not because you were weak, but because you were open, wide open, like a shoreline that receives everything the tide brings in. Sometimes the tide brought beauty, sometimes it brought debris. And you didn't always know the difference at first, because you were trained to accept what arrived. But you don't have to carry all of it any further. The river doesn't carry every stone it passes. It lets them sink gently to the bottom and keeps moving. That isn't failure. That is wisdom. That is natural law. Even your body knows this. It releases what it cannot use, not out of rejection, but out of intelligence. You have permission to do the same. All of it. The guilt that isn't yours. The responsibility you inherited without consent. The emotional labor that became your identity. The need to be the one who understands everyone, while no one understands you. You can set it down. Not with rage, not with dramatic declarations, but with a quiet decision. This is not mine to hold anymore. And in that release, you will feel space. At first it may feel strange, even lonely, because you are used to carrying weight. But soon you'll realize that space is where your own life returns to you. You are not late. You were never late. And every detour, every delay, every year that felt like it disappeared without the clarity you were reaching for, none of it was wasted. Some seeds germinate in darkness for a long time before they break the surface. Some tides pull back far before they come in with power. The tide doesn't rush, but it always arrives, and it arrives with the full force of everything that has been building behind it. All that patience, all that depth, all that quiet and unmistakable power. That is what is arriving in you now. It may not look like the kind of arrival you were taught to expect. It might not come with applause or obvious milestones. It might come as a calm decision you can't unmake, as a boundary that finally holds, as the end of a pattern you used to repeat, as a new tenderness toward yourself that doesn't collapse the moment someone disapproves. That's real power. That's the wave returning to shore. Your mission was never about doing something extraordinary by the world's standards. It was never about being recognized or validated by a world still learning to see. It was, and has always been, about presence. Fully embodied, authentically expressed, unguarded presence. The kind only a soul with your specific encoding can offer. Presence is rarer than talent. Presence is rarer than charisma. Presence is what heals rooms without saying a word. It's what makes people feel safe enough to tell the truth. It's what disrupts distortion simply by existing in clarity. The ancient builders who raised their structures along the Nile understood this. They knew the river was not just water, but a teacher. It arrives, it nourishes, it recedes, it returns. They aligned their lives with cycles rather than forcing straight lines. They knew that the most powerful act is not the grand gesture performed for an audience. It is the quiet alignment of a soul with its own truth. You don't need to know your entire mission today. You only need to be here, completely here. And trust that the current already knows where it's going. If you knew every detail in advance, you'd try to control it. You'd try to make it palatable. You'd bargain with it. But the current is wiser than the mind. It moves you not toward performance, but toward essence. You're not lost. You never were. You chose to forget. Not as punishment, but not because something failed, but because the depth of awakening you came here to move through required you to find your way back from the very bottom of the ocean. That's what makes it real. That's what makes it embodied. A truth handed to you on the surface would have remained a concept, but a truth found at depth becomes bone, becomes breath, becomes how you live. And you have. You have found your way back, not because it was easy, not because you were spared, not because you always felt strong. There were moments you didn't think you could keep going. Moments you felt like you were drowning in your own emotions, your own sensitivity, your own longing. But something in you refused to stop swimming, even when you couldn't see the surface. That refusal, that quiet, stubborn, luminous refusal, is the most Sirian thing about you. It is the part of you that knows how to navigate by inner light when outer landmarks disappear. It is the part of you that remembers there is a sky even when you are underwater. The fog is lifting, and what is beginning to appear on the other side is not a new version of someone you're supposed to become, like a character you have to invent. It's the original version of who you already are, the one that existed before this life added its layers, before the world told you what you should want, who you should be, how much of yourself was safe to show, before you learned to edit your truth in order to keep peace, before you learned to doubt your own knowing because it didn't match what others called reasonable. That is who is emerging now, clear, steady, rooted in something older than this world and more patient than any timeline you've lived through. You might notice it in small ways at first, how you no longer chase conversations that drain you, how your body rejects what it used to tolerate, how you're drawn to simpler things, clean water, open air, honest music, fewer words, how you crave what is real. This is your essence returning. This is your frequency stabilizing. You stayed until this moment. You didn't skip ahead. You didn't close this out when the truth started to get close. That tells you something about where you are. Not everyone is ready to sit with this much stillness. Not everyone is ready to let the water do what it does. Work slowly, gently, irresistibly, on everything that doesn't belong. Many people would rather keep the old pain because it's familiar, and many would rather keep the old story because it gives them a role to play. But you are ready. You have been for longer than you realize. The very fact that these words reach you and land inside you is evidence of timing, evidence of readiness, evidence that the signal has found its receiver. Tonight, if it feels right, place your hand over your heart and breathe. Not to perform a ritual, not because you have to, but because that simple act, hand to heart, breath moving through you, is the oldest form of remembrance there is. It is the body saying to the soul, I am listening. It is the nervous system being reminded that it is safe enough in this moment to soften. And in that moment, if words arise that feel true, let them. Let them be simple. Let them be yours. Maybe it's just, I'm here. Maybe it's, I release what isn't mine. Oh, maybe it's, I trust the current. Maybe it's nothing at all, just tears, just breath, just a quiet settling. That counts. Water speaks that way too. It doesn't always speak in sentences. It speaks in movement. Leave one word in the comments, just one. that describes what moved through you during this message. Then find someone else's word and offer them something real in return. Not a script, not a formula, something genuine. Because this space is not just a comment section, it's where starseeds recognize each other. And that recognition, quiet, wordless, across a screen, carries more than you know. There are moments when one simple word from a stranger lands like a hand reaching into the water, reminding you you're not alone in the deep. Let it be that. Let it be real. If something here reached you, share it with someone who is ready to receive it. And if you'd like to stay connected to these transmissions, subscribe. The waters of Sirius will carry us to whatever comes next. You're not just watching. You're remembering. And I'm grateful, truly grateful, that you were here.